Hey everybody, today we've got a political shift. This time it's going to be in the U.S. House between 2016 and 24. This is going to compare the two Trump wins when Republicans also won both the House and the Senate. What we're going to do is go through each state, look at the popular vote just for the U.S. House, and find the shifts between those 8 years. This is useful up to a point. There are some drawbacks. We'll get to those limitations in just a minute. But first, let's put up the background about the two elections we're going to compare. First, in 2016, in the U.S. House, Republicans won 241 seats. They did lose 6 in that election. But nationally, they got 49.1% of the popular vote. The Democrats won 194 seats. They picked up 6 of them, and they finished with 48% of the popular vote. And then if we jump ahead 8 years to 2024, Republicans won 220 seats. They lost 2 of them, but they finished with 50.6%. Democrats got 215 seats. They picked up a couple, and their national popular vote share was 47.8. So that's going to take us into this outstanding looking spreadsheet. The first column on the left, we've got the states. Then it's going to be the statewide popular vote in the U.S. House in 2016 for the Dems. Then it's going to be the same for the GOP. Then again, we're going to go ahead 8 years. We've got the statewide popular vote in the U.S. House for the Democrats in 2024. Next to that, it's the same for the Republicans. Then we've got the shifts between those two elections for the Democrats, then the shifts for the Republicans. The last column all the way on the right is going to be the net shift between the two parties between the two elections. There's also shading in this column. The darkest colors are 10 or more points. The lightest colors are going to be under 5%. Now, before we start going through it, let me get to the drawbacks I mentioned earlier. Now, anytime I do this type of shift, first, sometimes there are some discrepancies in this kind of data. I basically took it off of Wikipedia, and once in a while there's just something that does not match up. Usually it's only off by a small amount, and the vast majority of this data should be spot on, but keep that in mind. Now, the big limitation in this data is it just takes the statewide popular vote for the Dems and the Republicans. It's not going to factor in any third party or independent candidates. It's also not going to factor in some of these districts that had no opposition in the general election. There's also some that have 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans in the general election. Nothing is going to be perfect when you're looking for the sweet spot, but this is the best we've got. So don't rely totally on this data, but don't dismiss it either. The last thing I'll mention before we get started is, since 2016, there has been redistricting. Some states have gained, some have lost, but it's also going to be a little bit difficult to compare some of these states and some of these districts. So with all that said, I know you want to get to the map, but first, let's go through these states. We'll start in Alabama. In 2016, if you add up all 7 congressional districts, the Democrats got 32.9% of the vote. The Republicans got 64.7%. I'll also point out that one of those districts on each side was uncontested. And then in 2024, the Democrats went down to 25.3%. The Republicans went up to 73.7%. This time in those 7 districts, 3 of those Republicans were unopposed. So that's where a lot of that Democratic vote went in these shifts. So between those elections, the Democrats lost 7.6%. The Republicans gained 9%. That's an overall net shift of 16.6% away from the Democrats and toward the Republicans. Some states are going to be easy comparisons. Some, like in Alabama, are going to be a little bit misleading. So now you know what to look for. But let's quickly go through the rest of these states. In Alaska, that state now uses ranked choice voting. Back in 2016, there was a Libertarian candidate on the ballot that pulled in double digits. But throughout all that, the state shifted 11.9% toward the Democrats. Arizona got a little bit bluer by 3.7%. In Arkansas, that state shifted a massive 25.3% toward the Democrats. That was the biggest blue shift out of all the states. The reason for that is in 2016, in 3 of those 4 districts, there was a Libertarian candidate instead of a Democrat in the general election. But in 24, there were Democrats running in all 4. So that's why the numbers are skewed in this state. Let's keep going. In California, that state shifted 4.1% toward the GOP. Colorado went toward the Dems by 12.7%. Connecticut got redder by 7.9%. Delaware got a little bit bluer by 1.3%. Florida took a lurch to the right by 6.4%. Georgia took an even bigger lurch toward the left by 15.6%. Hawaii, an even bigger lurch back toward the right by 16.1%. Idaho, a smaller red shift of 3.5%. Illinois, even smaller at 2.1%. Indiana, an even 5% toward the Republicans. Iowa is also in that direction by 3.8%. Kansas, however, went hard toward the left by 15%. Kentucky, redder by 4.8%. Now we've got some blue shifts. In Louisiana, 3.8%. Maine, 8%. Maryland, 3.9%. Massachusetts, 5.6, and Michigan, which tied for the smallest shift out of all the states at 0.3%. In Minnesota, a little bit redder by 2.6. Mississippi, a whole lot redder than that at 20.3. Missouri, again, tied for the smallest shift. It got 0.3% bluer. Montana, redder by 3.3. Nebraska, another lurch toward the left at 15.5. In Nevada, in one of the districts in 2024, there were third-party candidates and not a Democrat. That's partly why they went down so much, and it went red by 12%. New Hampshire, bluer by 4.1. Now we've got some red shifts. We've got New Jersey, 1.3. New Mexico, 1.8. New York, 12.5. And North Carolina, 3.4. North Dakota got bluer by 6.6. Ohio, also bluer by 3.2. And Oklahoma, even bluer at 8%. Oregon got redder by 4.4. Pennsylvania, bluer by 6.1. Rhode Island, toward the GOP at 5.1. South Carolina, same direction, 1.8. South Dakota, significantly redder at 15.8. And slightly redder in Tennessee at 2.6. Texas, just a little bit bluer at 2.1. Also in Utah at 1.5. Then in Vermont, we've got the biggest shift out of all the states. The reason for that is in 2016, there was no Republican in the general election. There was a third-party candidate. But for this, because there's only one district in the state, we're going to use that third-party candidate's data in place of the Republican. If we didn't, then they would just have 0. But they're going to get that 10%. That's why it's in italics. So it is kind of misleading. But having said that, the Republicans had a huge shift here in their favor at 47%. Then in Virginia, it got bluer by 3.3. Washington, 1 point bluer than that at 4.3. West Virginia, a GOP shift of 8.8. Wisconsin, redder at an even 7. And Wyoming, that state got redder by 15.4. And then we've got your national shift here. Overall, the Dems went down 0.2. The Republicans went up 1.5. That's a total red shift of 1.7. So those are all of the states, and those are all of the shifts. Now, if you want to help visualize this data, we could take it all. We could put it on a map. If we do that, here it is. We've got similar shading. The darkest colors are 10 or more points. This time, the very lightest colors are going to be under 1% shifts. We're going to say those are the tilt margins. That's going to be in Missouri and Michigan. So are there any takeaways from any of these shifts? Well, if you go by the electoral votes, at the top, we could see the Republicans gained in 296 of those electoral votes. The Dems went up in 239. But if you're looking for any massive takeaways, as I said at the beginning, this is going to be a little bit misleading. I didn't want to point it out in every single state, but for example, in Arkansas, a state got significantly bluer, but that was only because of the lack of Democrats in the general election in 2016. So when you run unopposed in any of these districts, that's going to have an impact on these shifts. So yeah, the data is skewed in some of these states like in Nevada or Vermont, but not in all of them. Some states have also gained or lost House seats over redistricting between these two elections. So it is tough to say exactly what the takeaways are. You can see Texas getting a little bit bluer, Florida getting noticeably redder. The level of utility on this is going to be kind of limited. The main reason I'm showing this data is because it is comparing two presidential elections, both of them with Donald Trump wins. This isn't some presidential year compared to a midterm year going from one extreme to the other. Now, sometimes I do look at those shifts as well, but I think this one is going to be much more relevant. You've got similar results overall between these two elections. Republicans had success, but it wasn't overwhelming. So I'm sure you can look more into the individual states and find some criticisms in these districts that have no opposition for one side or the other. Some of them are also going to have two Democrats or two Republicans in the general. It's tough to even out all the data objectively across all 50 states, but if you are looking for one constant piece of data across all 50, then these are the shifts between 2016 and 2024 in the U.S. House. So I'm going to leave it there for now. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of the shifts in any of these states? Is this data more useful in some of these states than others? And which shifts surprised you the most? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.